Welcome into our lives.
And welcome to the Expanders Club podcast.
We're so happy to have you.
Join us as we embark on a journey of deep exploration, soul searching, and asking the hard questions.
With the goal of truly understanding the most aligned, empowered, and purposeful versions of ourselves.
We want to live an extraordinary life, and we're willing to dig deep to find out what it takes.
Buckle up. You're about to meet a new version of yourself, an extraordinary one. Hello, friends. Welcome and welcome back to the Expanders Club podcast. My name is Brooke Harris.
Hey guys, I'm Maddie.
Maddie, and actually, I can say I'm not a poser anymore. My name is officially Brooke Harris. That was the first time I said it out loud, and it was like real. It felt very different. So for those of you, to Maddie, this is no news or surprise. I got married 5 years ago. And just this week changed my name because for a lot of reasons that it felt like right, but also it happened to sync up with the fact that my driver's license was expiring, and I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do that, I might as well like do all the things and do the official name change to my husband's last name.
I mean, out of convenience, great, but finally she's committed.
Finally, I'm not going anywhere. No, it's, I've had a journey with my last names, and I think there's a lot there energetically too. And I think that this was like, I've done the work to kind of shed the trauma of my past two last names. I was not married before. I was adopted by my stepdad. So I had my original name and then my stepdad's last name. And there's a lot of baggage there. And some of it did come up in the name changing process, but more of a thought and a recognition and an acknowledgement, and no energetic pull or emotional pull or, felt like, whew, I'm done with that. That feels good.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah, thank you. So officially, Brooke Harris.
Brooke Harris. Harry. What should I call you? We've got some nicknames we'll come up with.
BH, whatever,
Hazza.
No, that doesn't make any sense. No,
it does in Australia.
Yeah, that was very Australian of you.
It's too much. It's too much, I know.
Yes, but this is an episode that has been a long time coming because we literally reference human design in so much of our catalog. And this episode now is finally breaking down and explaining the basics of human design.
Oh my gosh. Human design, I think, would have to be my favorite of what would you call it? The different like readings or way that you interpret the birth chart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it uses more information than just astrology. Yes, I don't know the exact language, but there's some basic information that goes into it. Human design and astrology both pull from are around this belief. This is my non-professional opinion, I guess, interpretation. But they both are kind of circulate around the belief that there is. We were born at a very specific time and place for a reason. Certain things align to bring us onto Earth at that point, and the moment that we were born tells us pretty much everything we need to know about our life path and our purpose. And these are tools to just decipher all of that, and it's pretty incredible.
Do you feel connected to your human design?
I do. Human design is so extensive. We don't get into all the little details of it. And I've been, I've known about human design for 8 or 9 years and have been using it for different things and in different ways. And I still feel like I'm just scratching the surface of all of the pieces of my own human design, let alone explaining it to someone else and then sharing what theirs all mean.
Yeah, it's a lot. I remember you introduced me to it in 2017. Was that with Jenna?
Yeah.
Jenna Zoe, who's now, she's one of the biggest human
She's the
design
queen.
readers. She's got an app, and yeah, I got you got me a reading, and I was like, what is this? And I remember just being so blown away because everything made sense.
Yes.
And maybe I love human design so much because mine is quite unique, being a...
Here we go, guys. Here we go.
Guys, I just have to tell you what my human design is. Like, not sure if you wanted to know, but gonna tell you anyway. Less than 1% of the population, I'm a reflector. Brooke, don't be jealous because I'm rare.
You are rare, and I know that about you, Maddie. You're a rare gem.
Thank you for admitting that.
Yes, Maddie is rare.
But it doesn't make it easy.
No, yours is actually, I think, well, we're very different, designed very differently. And so for me, hearing and understanding yours, I'm like, oh shit, like that sounds really hard and like a really wild journey to be on, but it suits you. And so I'm sure it feels much more aligned and like it makes sense to you, where me as a generator, it would never work for me. It would never feel right.
Totally. Like your energy centers are so clear and defined, but with a reflector, the energy centers, and this will make sense, I guess, as you guys learn more, they're not defined. There's just like complete openness. And so what that means for a reflector is that I'm so adaptable and like really open to any path, anything that's energetically or like sparks my interest, desire, etc., and means I'm like a chameleon in the world. And I think that was helpful for me to learn because I was always drawn, and I thought that maybe I was like lost or like constantly like searching and seeking, but actually that's in my nature to just explore and meet new people and find new communities and new environments and live in new cities. And that's just all a part of my learning, because then in my nature, I'm meant to help teach and like reflect that back to others and to help them see the environment in like a different perspective in a beautiful way.
Yes. Yeah, there's a few things I really love about human design, like a few general things. Like one, it helps you kind of understand and validate like the parts of you, the way that's most natural to be. You know, the things that come most naturally to you. Two, it helps you understand that we are all actually very different. And so for me as a generator, to expect you as a reflector to operate in the same ways that I do, once you have the information from human design, you're like, that's crazy. Like you can't, we're not going to operate in the same ways, you know? And I think it helps. I mean, we know that now also.
So different
On many levels, but I think that like helps. It helps helps with an understanding of different relationships, and it can actually be a really useful tool for relationships. Like you and I have had Kelley do a reading of like how we would work together, which is really cool and insightful, and definitely has come up for me in moments where I'm like, oh, this wouldn't, like I need to share something in a different way with Maddie, or this makes sense that this action caused this reaction, knowing a little more about your human design.
And why we chose to do the podcast the way we do and interview separately, because both of our interview styles, both the way that we process information, the way that we are able to just like our reaction time, everything, like we're just very different in that. So it makes sense that we would have our individual interviews, which makes sense.
Yeah. And the other thing is that I think that it is a really good tool for being able to tell if you're out of alignment. And that is something that, re-listening to this episode with Kelley, I've had a little bit of a like, oh fuck moment. You know, for me as a generator, and anyone else who is a generator out there, like alignment is, it's very clear how we make decisions. It's either a hell yes or a hell no. There's no maybe. And there's something very big in my life that I like know is a hell no, that I like can't hell no. And I feel the energy drain. it's insane. It's insane. Like I have to now manage like my time doing and being with this energy because it's such a suck on me. So I'll be able to do something with it for an hour and then have to get up and move around or do something else for a little bit. Like it's really interesting. And as much as I'm transforming and really proud of the work I've done, like that is just like such a black and white thing. And it's like,
and it's so hard when it's so evident. And I'm excited to see what this looks like for you on the other side of this. Like once that big thing is not in your life, like what that opens up for you and what will come in.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Me too. And I'm lucky that I'm doing a lot of other work that kind of helps re-energize and helps stabilize while I work through this other thing. But, you know, it's so hard when you just know. And hearing Kelley again explain generators and the gut instinct, and I was just like, God damn it.
Oh my gosh, you're like, I know what my gut's telling me, and I can't, like, there's nothing I can do about it right now.
Yeah, but hopefully, you know, for someone else who is feeling that, like they, you know, hopefully it's a tool. And I think human design is a fun tool, and it's another one where it's like, you know, Kelley says this in the episode, like take what works for you and let go of what doesn't. But I have found in my human design readings and learning about it, like anything that in the moment I was like, no, that doesn't sound right. That's not me. I don't like that. The more I've thought about it, after a while, I'm like, oh shit, it's because that thing is out of alignment, and that actually is like my truest. That is my truth.
Oh my gosh, that is so wild. I know back when I did that reading in 2017, she was like, you're meant to be like teaching people, like helping people grow, like a healer, like something like a coach. And at the time I was like, yeah, right. And now here I am.
You're like,
as a
hello,
coach.
I am a coach. Yeah.
At that time, that just felt so weird and edgy. And now I'm like, oh, and I didn't ever think about that again, you know. I remember listening back to it years later, and I was like, wait, what?
Yes. And at that time, you weren't prepared to be a coach. And I think that there's kind of this like fun tug of war between this journey, this transformation journey. And I've seen it in so many scenarios. Even just, I had my birthday yesterday and I was reading my journal pages back for the year. And it was like stuff that I now am like, oh yes, I know what embodying. I knew a year ago and was writing the exact same shit. It was just the process of embodying it and knowing it in my soul, my gut, my bones, all the things, like took a lot longer than for me to just know it, if that makes sense.
You have to go through the process. And that's like those moments of being like, oh my God, if only I'd like done this earlier or knew this earlier. But it's just, you have to just trust the process.
Yeah. Everything makes sense in hindsight. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons, trust the process. But human design is such a fun tool to like help the journey and help expedite things, and also just like fun also to chat with friends and girlfriends and like talk about human design and like have that as another talking point in a friendship or relationship.
Yeah, I definitely recommend, even if you don't fully believe in this stuff, just to like lean in and hear yours and see if any of it resonates. You might be surprised.
Yes. I mean, Dennis, my husband, is the ultimate non-believer. And I'm just constantly laughing to myself because he's so to a T, his astrology and his human design. He's just like, fucking, it's dead on. It's like all so perfect. I'm just like, that's because...
Do you tell him?
That's because you're a Pisces rising. And, oh yeah. And he's like, yeah. This morning he was like, oh, I didn't sleep well last night. I haven't been getting good sleep the past few nights. And I was like, yeah, me neither. Probably because there's a full moon coming. And he was like, yeah, probably the full moon, sure. I'm like, no, bro, that's exactly the reason.
It's science.
Yes, clearly. But the other fun thing about this episode is Kelley, who is on sharing human design, is a human design development coach, is also my OG BFF.
I love
we
that.
were college roommates. You'll get to hear a little bit of our story. But I think you'll enjoy the dynamics of our friendship. It's so funny to watch yourself back interacting with someone in this way that you know so well. And I personally was just laughing at the dynamics of our friendship. Like, this is literally an episode, and you can relate to this, Maddie. This is an episode to showcase Kelley, right? And like, the first 5 minutes is me talking.
Standard behavior.
Part of it was I wanted to make sure she felt comfortable, but who knows what the reason was. But I'm just laughing of like, Kelley, there's so many reasons we're good friends, but like her patience and loving energy to just let me be me is like certainly one of them.
Oh, B, we're all here to just let you shine, babe.
Oh my, I know. Well, at least I can recognize it.
It's taken you a minute, but it's good now. Yeah.
All right. Maddie clearly has some things she needs to tell me.
I love the honesty that we do live.
Actually, dude, I'm studying, among other things, I'm studying Kabbalah 1 right now, and this is a good exercise for you. Maybe we'll do it off audio, and something that our listeners can take home. But I'm pretty far into Kabbalah 1, so there's a lot that I'm not going to explain. But the exercise that they're asking us to do right now is to ask people close to you, people that you trust, what do they dislike about you that you should change?
Ooh. Edgy.
Because with the idea of like, as you change, like that is kind of darkness within you, right? And if you can transform the darkness, the only thing that there's left there room for is light. And so the idea of it, like you facing these things dead on and having the intention of changing them, and then all of the improvements that creates for your life and your way of being. So I'm bought into it totally. I asked Dennis this morning.
Oh, dangerous.
And he for sure thought it was a trick. I could literally see him processing things in his head, and he was like, I don't know. I can't really think of anything right now.
Oh, yeah, right.
I know. I was like, okay, think about it and come back to me.
Think about what you're willing to say here, what you're willing to risk.
I was like, I promise this won't be held against you. He was like, not buying it.
No, I think that's a dangerous game with your husband.
Yeah, but
what an exercise.
Yeah, maybe we should do it this weekend when we're hanging out together. And definitely anyone listening, I recommend trying it. It's hard to hear, but like if you're willing, if you want to be a better person and like want to be the best version of yourself, like why wouldn't you want that information, right? That's the only way to transform.
Fuck, let's go there. We're here for it. We'll get Bowie involved.
She'll tell us straight up.
She'll tell us the truth. 2-year-olds don't lie.
No, unfortunately, they don't. So,
Keeping us real.
Lots of transformation happening. Lots of information to share with you guys in the near future. Mads and I are both in, I don't want to speak for you, Mads, but I think we're both in a very transformative state and kind of just processing it all. I know you have some cool stuff coming up. So excited to share when the time is right.
Yeah. Lots of big changes happening. Might not be the same girl soon. Watch this space.
Yeah, watch it. Cool. Guys, I hope you enjoy this episode. It was so fun for me to record and just have the opportunity to showcase my BFF, the incredible human she is. Her journey has been so inspiring, so incredible. She's been through so much adversity on her journey, and for her to share, one, she shares the basics of human design, but makes it really relatable through comparing it to stories and actions in her own life. So excited for everyone to listen, and please support her. She's my bestie, so please go follow her. One, she's amazing and you're going to get great information. She's also an incredible human design coach, so if you are intrigued, want to learn more, Mads, you can speak to it. You've done sessions with her.
Kelley's great. She's just so good. The way she explains it, it's just like so clear, and she's really incredibly knowledgeable. I was so impressed with her. Yeah,
she makes it feel really accessible and easy to digest. So you can DM her and follow her at, hold on, this is a long one. Obviously we'll link it in the show notes, but wellness from within underscore with Kelley, Kelley. That's her on Instagram.
Nice.
Obviously, if you can't, we'll link it. But if you need to get access to her, DM us and we'll give you her info as well. Highly recommend, if no matter where you are in your journey, if you don't have experience with human design or want to dig in more, I highly recommend it. It has been super impactful for both of us.
Mm-hmm. Highly recommend. Love this episode. Hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
See you on the other side.
All right, you guys, we have a special treat today. My very, 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 very best friend, Kelley Metters, is joining us for this episode. Not because she's my best friend, because she is an incredible human with a really amazing story, and also is finally going to teach us about human design, what it means, what it is. We've mentioned it probably in every episode, actually, but we've never fully given our audience the full description. And Kelley is a human design expert, a human design development coach. She has taught me so much about human design and constantly reminds me about pieces of my design while functioning in life. So man, what a gift to have your best friend be such a tool. But I want to start somewhere different, Kelley. I want to start 20 years ago. Little Brooke, little Kelley, going off to college in San Francisco. So for everyone listening, Kelley was my freshman year roommate at USF in San Francisco. And the funny thing about this, and like, I think this says a lot about our relationship and just the people we are, like, we weren't roommates because we got put in the same room. We were not roommates on day one. And I think we kind of forget that sometimes, but it's like an important part of the story. Like, we got to know each other and then went and like campaigned and negotiated to be roommates.
Because we both had crazy roommates.
Yes. Yes. And we were really lucky that they were friends and they wanted to like room together so we lived on the same hallway, guys, like 4 or 5 doors down from each other. And we basically just ended up swapping roommates. And so I moved to Kelley's room, door 1, right? We were the first one on the floor. And then her roommate moved in with my roommate at the other end of the hall. And what a blessing. And we've been friends now. That was, wildly somehow that was 20 years ago. And we've been friends ever since, finding each other wherever, since freshman year until the year and a half I did in Napa, which is where you live and where Bowie was born. Since then, we've never lived in the same place. So we've just and we've managed to see each other multiple times a year, most years. And so it's been a really special relationship. But because no one else could, I want you to share, and I will do the same. I want you to share a little bit about freshman year, Brooke. I mean, one place I have to start is, you guys, we were so sophisticated, I think, or like more sophisticated than the average freshman. We were like hosting people in our room, making blender margaritas, like making Jello shots for nights out. If that's what you want to call sophisticated, I guess, but like kind of. We were just like, I think we were the room to be, which is like very different now because neither of us are like partiers or like stay up late or anything like that.
Total lifetime ago.
So why'd you decide to become my friend back then?
I was thinking about that recently, and I don't know.
You were like, wait, why am I friends with this chick?
I just was reflecting on, I think someone asked, how we met or how we become friends. And I think it's really interesting when I share with people that we've basically had a long distance friendship, almost our entire friendship.
Yeah.
Like you said, until now, or until recently when you were here in Napa for about 1.5 years. But prior to that, freshman year in college was the only year that we lived in the same place.
Yeah.
And it's been 21 years. And like, aside from that year, and now recently a year and a half that we got together, it's always been long distance. And so when I share that with people, they're always shocked at how close we are. And I was thinking about it actually recently, ironically, through the lens of human design. And I realized like you and I've always thought are very, very, very different.
Hmm.
But from a human design perspective, like we have such similar designs and so many complementary things. And I think there's this, to me, it almost made me feel like there's just this deep understanding on like a soul level, like in the way we either communicate or understand each
Yes.
other. Like we've just always got each other, like even through all of the different phases of what the last 20 years have been. And there's been a lot of them.
Yes.
I feel like there's just always been this like acceptance and this understanding and this way of communication that has been easy. And I've never I've never worried about like showing up as myself around you. I've always felt authentic around you. And I think that's something that like I don't know that that can be described. I think that's just a
Hmm.
feeling, that's just an energy. So to answer your question, I feel like maybe energetically like I just knew. And even through the years, like I just knew like there was always something holding on to our friendship, even though we were so far apart,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
physically.
Yeah, I think it's for sure a karmic relationship. And I'm sure people listening can understand that and relate and probably have those relationships in their lives where they're like, this is just a person that I know and have probably known in many lifetimes. And I think for me too, like one of the things, because I obviously was thinking about it in preparation for this episode, like I've always felt like you've always felt like home to me, or like, and like this very like safe and kind of what you said, safe, seen, this is home, like this is a home base that I can go to. And especially at a time freshman year when I didn't feel that with my family ever growing up. And I was in a city, I came from New York State and was in a city 3,000 miles away from my family. And also, I felt so in over my head because I came from the middle of nowhere, New York State, like farm country, like not really much culture or anything interesting there, like going to essentially the culture capital of the US, San Francisco. And I just felt like I felt so in over my head. I felt so uneducated, uncultured, uninteresting. Um, but I never felt that way with you. Like I felt like we
Mhm.
were friends, equals. Like although you knew the city so well, you were like we came from very different worlds. But was like, okay, we're on the same wavelength.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. I actually like that's funny you say I knew the city really well. Maybe I got to know it well. I mean I grew up not far from the city, but I also grew up in a small town. So it was definitely big and overwhelming to me as well, but we tackled it together.
Well, yeah, you just were like a navigator. You were good at
Yeah.
navigating and figuring stuff out. I think that was a big part of it. Like, um, but man, we definitely had a lot of fun that year, and we
Yeah.
have changed and evolved so much. And I want to get into your journey, and I want to talk about human design, because your journey is so incredible and interesting, and you have so much wisdom in that journey. And I know that human design has helped along the way. But let's start, because I have a feeling as we tell your story, a lot of things are going to relate back to human design. So let's start. Can you share, the basics, or in whatever way, can you kind of share about what human design is?
Absolutely. To me, I feel like the best way to describe human design is it's a tool for self awareness.
Mhm.
It really takes some modern and ancient sciences. So it combines astrology, the Kabbalah, the chakra system, quantum physics, the I Ching, like all these different modalities. And it gives you what I like to call like a map or a blueprint, and that's your design. It's calculated using your birth time, your birthplace, and your birth date. And this like blueprint or map or whatever you want to call it, I feel like really helps us connect back to our inner knowing.
Mhm.
Um, it kind of gives us these clues as to how we can thrive in like all the different areas of our life. And one of my favorite things about human design and what's really resonated for me is I feel like it really celebrates uniqueness for anyone. And I feel like it really brings us back to that. So it helps us really understand our, conditioning and like rediscovering our authentic self. But it's just so much about pointing out that we're all unique individual beings and we're not all supposed to operate the same and we're not supposed to show up in the world the same. Um, and so I think that's just such a powerful tool to remind us
Yes.
of that. And that's why I think so many people feel so seen by learning
Mm-hmm.
about their human design. It's not something that's telling them something new about themselves, or maybe it's something that they didn't know, but it's almost more of like this validation or a reminder. And a lot of people like to say, like, it's almost like this permission slip to come back to
Yes.
themselves.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. The permission slip, the reminder, it's like, it's very empowering.
Absolutely. It really, I think another thing that's really important to also share is that it's not a rule book. It's
Mm-hmm.
meant to be to take what resonates and leave, everything else. Like if something doesn't resonate with you, like leave it. That's not the point. Like it's supposed to give you tools for that self exploration and that connection again to your inner knowing. And my teacher actually likes to say, like, it's if it's supposed to be useful. Like that's what it's supposed to be
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
Like if it's not doesn't matter if it's true, but it matters if it's useful.
Yes.
And I think that's something that I really connect to and I really like to share with my clients because that's what it's about. It's like it's finding whether it's human design or, some other modality that you connect with. It's really something that's useful to you that gives you tools to, help connect back to yourself and help be the best person that you can be and show up in this world.
Yes, I love that. And it's this really grounding place and force. Like the language that is, to me, the language used in human design to describe things. And it is very empowering and it's very, it's just this like very high vibration place to kind of ground you to come back to. So can you explain like a few things that people could learn from understanding their human design?
Absolutely. Um, I think one of the big things that shows up a lot for myself as well as a lot of clients is boundaries. Is really
Hmm.
learning how to set boundaries. I think that's something that we maybe know that we don't have them, but like kind of finding the tools to help us establish them. Learning when to set the boundary, learning what to say yes to, what to say no to. For me as a generator, I'm, meant to say yes to the things that light me up and no to everything else. And I feel like
Hmm.
just being presented in that way, in a way that was so black and white, really helped me kind of check in on what was right for me. Um, and so I think that was something that helped me create boundaries in a way that felt easier to recognize.
Yes, because back to what you said, it gives you permission. Like we know, like generally we know, like if something doesn't make us feel good, we don't want to say yes. But then comes in the conditioning, the stories, the obligation, right? Versus
Right.
if you're like, I'm using, I'm sticking to my human design roadmap, and my human design gives me permission to to act in this way or think in this way, and I know that in doing that it's for the higher good, for my higher good and those all around me. Like that is a really big permission slip that unfortunately a lot of us need.
Right. Absolutely. And I think like, I identify as a people pleaser. So I think that's something that like really helped me disconnect from that and like really
Yes.
learn
Yes.
what were the right things to say yes to and how to use my energy best. And that was really not only serving me, but serving everyone around me. So
Yeah.
that was something that really helped me establish that. Another thing I would say also is that in my experience, I feel like it really helped me like get unstuck.
Mm,
It
mm.
really helped me like learn how to make decisions better for me and for my design. Um, and some of that involved letting go of this plan. I'm such a
Yes.
planner, or I have been such a planner, and I feel like I always wanted to have everything planned out. And so to be able to use my design to understand that I was meant to respond to things and I was meant to like in the moment. So I'm not, I was able to embrace that I am supposed to make one decision at a time and follow those breadcrumbs, and they're going to lead me to a better outcome than I could have necessarily planned myself. And that was allowing me to, like, again, connect back to that inner knowing, to trust my gut. So there's just tools like that I feel like really can help people get unstuck, can really help
Yes.
people, like, remind them of, what makes them unique, and connect them back to, like, really their core being that existed before all the conditioning of the world and the people around them kind of came into their lives. And so I feel like it really helps strip away the conditioning. There's pieces of the design that really speak to that and help bring awareness to that as well. So many things, so many layers. I mean, it's
That's
just
the thing. It's hard to explain in a podcast. We're gonna do our best, but there are so many layers, and even I'm someone who's been aware of human design for, gosh, quite a long time, like maybe like
Mhm.
8 years or so, maybe even more, 8 or 9 years, and yet there's just constantly different layers to uncover, and everyone is more of a aha moment or like, yep, that's totally right. But give us some of the basics. So I have a feeling that probably a lot of our listeners know the basics of their design. Is that the right word? Like, what is, you mentioned you're a generator, so am I. Woo, woo. Um Generators. Um, no, there's no best design, but maybe generators. But no. Oh, I can't say that now because Bowie's a manifesting generator, right?
I believe
Yeah.
so, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone is good. And if Maddie was on, she is a
Reflection.
reflector, and she would tell you she's special because that's like the smallest amount of, like, the smallest percentage is only what, 2% of people in the world are
1%. Yeah.
1%.
It's a
Christ.
unicorn.
That number we need a fact check on that. Like, I think some of the polls need to be updated because I'm just meeting these reflectors everywhere, and they all are like, oh yeah, I'm a reflector. Like, okay, you're rare and special. I get it. But let's start there. Can you just give us the basics of, like, what's a, like, generator, projector, manifesting generator? What are those?
Sure. So there are different energy types. So let me back up. There are a lot of layers to someone's design, but it really starts with the type, and that's your energy type. So that's whether you're a generator, a manifesting generator, a manifester, a projector, or a reflector. So there's 5 energy types,
Okay.
and that is like the beginning point of your learning your design. There's so much that speaks just about your type alone that can really help give you tools to kind of tap into your design. So those really speak to kind of how you use your energy best.
Okay.
And then from there, there's different things like your strategy, which is going to help you decide, help you see how to create aligned opportunities. Then there's our authority, which really helps us learn how to best make decisions. There's our profile, which is like kind of speaks more to our personality and how we learn best. There's different centers. There's 9 centers, all the way kind of designed similarly to the chakra system. So all the way from your head down to your root.
Okay.
And those all speak to different centers, whether they are places where you have reliable energy or places where you have energy, whereas you pick up that from the people and places you're around. So there's just all these different layers to your design that speak to different aspects of how you can kind of connect back to yourself, and how to use, again, it kind of all comes back to how to use your energy best and back to
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
So I think even as like people, I think it's really fascinating to dive into so many of the layers. But I think really once you do that, I feel like it all comes back to your type and your strategy and your authority. Those 3 things are just so key to kind of making all those other layers work. Like, it's not that
Yes.
you are trying to force what your unique gifts are. They're just going to show up naturally when you're living within your design, within
Yes.
your type, within your authority and your strategy. Um, So that kind of gives like a little bit of like a summary. Do you want me to go into kind of the each type and a little bit about each of those types?
Yeah, let's go into just the basics high level, because I have a feeling some people know their type, but then you kind of forget like what all the things that go with it are, or what the basics are. So like a little refresher for all of us.
Of course. And there, again, there's also a lot to go into with each type, but I'll kind of just give like a little tease as to kind of what each type kind of brings out for me. I'll
Yes,
start with
perfect.
generator. You and I are both generators. And I think the key thing about generators is we are meant to spend our energy, which we have a lot of energy if we're spending it doing the right things. So we're meant to spend our energy doing what lights us up, what excites us. And that is going to be beneficial for us and as well as everyone around us,
Mm-hmm.
because the types that don't have the kind of generator energy really can feed off of our positive energy, and they can utilize that as well. So it's really important to follow the things that light us up. And I feel like that's one of the key components of generators.
Yes, I love that. So if you're a generator and you're misaligned, you probably would feel very low energy, very tired.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're using your energy for the wrong things, and you're, in my case, a people pleaser who was just saying yes to everything, like, you're going to feel drained. You're not going to feel that vibrant energy that you're meant to feel, because you're saying yes to too many things, and that's
Yes.
not leaving the opportunity for the right things to come around. You don't have the space for it.
Yes. Yeah. So those of you who are generators, also speaking to myself, think about your energy when you do something, when you put attention on something. How does it feel? Is it giving you energy, or is it draining your energy? And I've found, as a generator, the things that drain your energy, it's no joke. It drains your energy fast and hard. And
Yeah.
it is hard to recover unless you are willing to remove that thing fully from your life.
Right, right. And if you start to pay attention, it becomes more obvious, like when things are a yes or a no for you.
Yes.
And I think you might have been someone who actually said this to me really early on. It's like, it's kind of black and white with that. It's like, it's either a hell yes or it's a no. Like, there's
Yeah.
no maybe, there's no gray area. The maybes are really like a no or a no for now. It doesn't mean that it's always going to be a no. But that's something that I feel like really helped me start to like really tap into that gut knowing of like,
Hmm.
this is a hell yes. I want to say yes to this. Or like, I guess this is a no because it doesn't
Yeah.
feel that good.
Yeah. And that just mostly note to self, that how that just made me realize like the maybes are an opportunity to question and dive deeper into, if this is a maybe, why can't I categorize it into a no immediately? Because, a maybe, like you just said, a maybe is a no. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Yet a maybe that we can't quite make a decision on, or maybe there's other people's judgment or thoughts weighing in on it, or we have guilt or whatever it is. Like, if you're a generator, that is a great opportunity for some self-examination and growth. When you have a maybe, stop and examine it and ask why.
Well, and also kind of think of a maybe as like, you are no longer tapping into your body. Like, you are no
Mm,
longer going inside for that decision. You are going to your mind for that decision. So a lot of what human design is teaching us too is to get back into our body to make decisions. Um, and in this particular example, like with a sacral knowing, with trusting your gut, like, you're making that decision from your gut and it's an immediate response.
yeah.
And that's not everybody's decision making process, but for someone with that type of decision making process, it's like, it really becomes clear that we are either making our decisions from our body, from our gut knowing, or from our mind. And when we go into that maybe state, like, that's like our mind is trying to analyze like the pros and
Hmm.
cons and trying to almost like convince ourselves of the yes or the no, versus just letting your body tell you what the right decision is for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And for most of us, anyways, we have a lot more experience thinking with our minds than with our gut, or
Absolutely.
making decisions with our mind. And man, oof, trying to move away from that myself. So all of this is a really good reminder for me, to, tidy up my energy.
Absolutely. Me as well.
Okay.
It's
Yes.
a work in progress. It's not
Yes. Oh, always.
destination by any means.
Well, that's the thing, and I know we were going to share your journey, but like you can reinforce and speak to this. Like no matter how evolved you are, no matter if you're a human design expert or whatever expert you are, like it still is always an evolution, a process, a journey, and like not in a difficult way, like in a fun discovery way, but like yeah, there's no end point to this of like,
Yeah,
okay, I have everything figured out. It's perfect. I'm just like floating through life.
right. That can be sometimes one of the hardest learnings is that like there isn't this end game or this destination we're reaching, but when you're on a healing journey, it's always evolving and it's always kind of growing us to this deeper and better place, but it doesn't mean that you're going to get to this place where you don't have to come back to these things to like
Yeah.
you're not going to just operate in a perfectly whatever that even I mean that doesn't even exist like you there's just not some destination that we're going to just get to and
Yeah.
everything's going to be perfect and that we're going to achieve this absolute that no things are going to come our way that are going to throw us
Right.
off.
Right. I think, and I reserve the right to change my mind on this, but I think maybe like the destination for me is that like deathbed moment, that end of life moment of like, I have no fucking regrets. Like
Mm,
fucking well done.
yeah,
you know? And that doesn't
that's
mean no mistakes or, no regrets is not the same as no mistakes. Cause like
right.
for God's sake, clearly I've made many mistakes, but it's more of like, yeah, that was good. I think that's the moment for me. It's like deathbed moment of like, cool. I came here I did what I was meant to do here and like had a good time doing it. So that's the
Awesome, I love it.
destination, people. Hopefully it's far off.
Yes.
All right. Generators.
Okay.
We've got
Yeah.
generators. We can go on about them all day since, we are generators and have a lot of experience with that. Who else? Who else is out there?
It's actually interesting. As a generator, I do find that generator is a more one of the more common types, but I do find I'm really surrounded by a lot of generators,
Yeah.
and I've also, in my experience with clients, come across them the most, which
Yeah.
is interesting. Just like
Interesting.
you're trying to. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
who knows, but I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, so manifesting generators, they have a lot in common with generators and also manifestors. You can tell by the name. I think the main thing, so they're also meant to operate in how we described for generators. But I think the main thing that I feel like is important in distinguishing the two is that they're like multi-passionate doers. They're like really, they might be, tackling multiple things at once or lit up by multiple things at once. And they're meant to pivot quickly. Like they're meant to, really know when something's no longer a yes for them and pivot to the next thing. And sometimes that's quicker than other people can really relate to. And so I think that's something I really love to share about manifesting generators in relation to generators. Like, again, it doesn't mean that a generator can't, be interested in more than one thing. That's like
Right.
not at all what I'm saying, but it's just that those manifesting generators really have this like quick way of being and doing. And they just are able to, when they're living in their design, really, pivot quickly and often in a very like very good way. And
Mm-hmm.
that they're meant to. And they're meant to leave something when it's no longer right for them. And that's one of the lessons too, is not to hold on to things that are, no longer right for them. So
Yeah.
that's, I think, one of the main ways that I like to distinguish the two.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And they're still like the sacral gut authority. Is that the language?
Yes. So manifesting generators and generators are the only ones in their design that have the sacral center. So that's one of the 9 centers defined. And so that means they have this reliable, personal, individual energy that they can depend on. So it's that
Mm-hmm.
reliable sacral energy. And so often they have that they have that gut response. Sometimes that doesn't mean that's their authority, so that's like a little
Yeah.
nuance, but it often can be their
Yeah.
authority. because of that, because they have
Okay.
that sacral gut knowing. It's the only two types that have that sacral center defined.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. And just, I don't want to fully go down this rabbit hole, but I just want to make a note. Like, as we said, Bowie, my 2.5-year-old, is a manifesting generator.
Mhm.
What a gift for me to
Mm.
understand that my kid might be moving on from things very quickly, not forcing her to stick with something because she should or because she said yes to it, like giving her the permission to follow her design and like be
Mm.
interested in a bunch of different things, move from things quickly. I'm sure many other things that I need to learn from you, but like that's the other thing where this becomes a really fun tool, is like not only for ourselves, but for our family members, our kids, our work relationships. Maddie and I have done a call with you just talking about how we should work together and how we best work together for our energy types and our design. Like, it's an incredible tool for all of the relationships around your relationship to self. Obviously, start there, but then the
Mhm.
relationships around you too.
Absolutely. That's like one of the things I love so much about human design is that first it helps us tap back into our inner knowing and really understand ourself and our authentic self and like really who we are at our core. But then it really speaks to then, because it's about embracing our uniqueness and because it's about like the different, honoring and celebrating our differences, then as you learn the design of the people that are around you, whether that's business partners or romantic partners, children,
Mm-hmm.
parents, all those different relationships in your life, you can almost better understand them and what makes them unique and that them different, and honor that instead of trying to, want everyone around you to show up in the same way. I mean,
Yes.
how boring.
How boring. And like also like gives you some kind of quick insight into people, right? In relationships and business. Like,
It's
there are very few conversations I'm having where I'm not asking what's your human design, what's your sun, moon, and rising, because that like gives me enough information to like, you know kind of assess where you first of all, if you know them or not, then I'm like, cool,
Mhm.
no matter what, you're my person, you already know those things. um um, but it's like, and I jokingly, on a very important call this week, it was like our third call for Good Milk with a manufacturing partner. It was a very serious call, but at the end of it, we got into birthdays or something. And I was like, oh, wait, when are your two birthdays? It's these like two older men and they're both cancers. And I was like, you should have told me that 3 calls ago. Like, this all would have gone a lot easier and a lot simpler, and I would have trusted you much faster and all the things, which they were laughing at and obviously definitely confused, and probably thought I was a little crazy, but I was like, that would have just helped me so much more to know that.
Well, and yeah, it just gives us this way of like understanding each other a little bit better, communicating a little bit better, knowing when someone might need something different than you.
Yes.
And I think like for me, it's really, I feel like improved so many of my relationships because I feel like I'm more accepting of people being different.
Yes.
And I really
Yes.
feel like I encourage that. And I like don't want, my husband to show up in the same way as I do, or my friends to show up in the same way. And I want to celebrate what makes them unique and honor what they need to, be their best selves.
I think that's interesting because it's such a place of like combativeness in relationships, of like, they didn't react the way that I would have, or they didn't say the thing I would have said in this situation, or they're not behaving how I would behave. And it's like, that can be, when we take that perspective and that approach, I think that can cause a lot of problems in relationship, because one is running things through a completely their own unique perspective, but also their own unique design and how they just naturally respond to things. And that, as someone who is a projector versus generator, is probably never going to respond in the way that a generator would. And so
Right.
to understand that, just gives permission and like empathy and all the things in our relationships.
Right. And acceptance, just acceptance for being different. I feel like that's something that's like I've paid more attention to recently, just being accepting of people that operate differently than you. So jumping into projectors next. Projectors, to me, I feel like the you know quick summary is that they are just these natural guides and leaders and teachers. And I think something that's so beautiful about how they operate is that they're not meant to have this go, go, go energy. They're meant to maybe not like work that 9 to 5 job. They're maybe meant to have a different flow of energy that allows in more rest. And I think sometimes a lot of projectors, because we live in a world that like really I think supports generators, like this kind of do
Mm-hmm.
do do culture.
Yes.
And I think as a projector and learning that as your design could feel like a little bit like, how do I
Oh
how do I make
shit.
this work in this world? And so
Yeah.
I find like a lot of projectors, might be burnt out because they've been trying to show up in more of a generator way. But living in their design is to allow in rest and to really like acknowledge that their gift is not in the doing, but it's in their perspective.
Yes.
They just see things that others can't see. They have just this natural wisdom about them, and they just um, really shine in that way. And so I think the one thing that like really I feel like to include on their how they use their energy is just as this beautiful perspective and this guide.
Yeah. I love that. I'm thinking of a friend who is close to me and well, who's a projector, and I'm like, ooh, she's misaligned in some parts and then so aligned in other parts.
Mhm.
And I just like I see her path for alignment. So
Mhm.
it is so interesting to know these things, and it's fun to like know the basics about other people, like we said, so you can kind of recognize or like maybe in your world definitely help guide them into their most aligned energy.
Right, right. Okay. Moving on into manifestors. Manifestors also don't have that sacral, defined sacral. So just like projectors. So I think one of the things to really note about actually all manifestors, projectors, and reflectors is that they don't have that like go, go, go energy. So that's something that kind of is consistent in those three types.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to recognize because, again, like I said before, the way that um, our culture has kind of set the world up and life and living and work and all the things, like I think it's a little bit easier to embrace that generator energy type
Mm-hmm.
more than some of these others because I think it kind of goes against what we're used to or like what
Yeah.
we've seen.
Yeah.
But so a manifester is meant to like really initiate things. So they are meant to really allow themselves to be like ebb and flow in their energy. And so allow rest in when it comes and not try to force things. But as opportunities and things feel really exciting to them to like really initiate that, to really bring those ideas forward, to like be that um to really be that person who brings ideas to the world, and not necessarily meant to follow through on them. So they're meant to like really get something going and really bring those ideas forward, and then it's maybe the generators around them that like carry that through and
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
ability to do that. So they're like they kind of bring these exciting new ideas forward and initiate that, and then they're really meant to like honor rest when they're not feeling that. So like to really allow that to show up differently depending on where their energy is. That's one of the things that I feel like is like key about manifestors.
Manifestors are so interesting to me. I wonder if Elon Musk is a manifestor. Do you know?
I don't know. I'm not
I'm
sure.
I'm so
No,
curious if he feels like just in that description,
right.
he feels like that. Um,
And like there are so many more things that I am not sharing about all the types. Like
right.
there's a lot more that I would go into with somebody to help them learn about their type, but these are just kind of the things that stick out to me as um, how I distinguish them, like just from a simple perspective.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look up and see if he is this he's let's see. A lifetime of turbulent relationships. Oh, he's a manifesting generator. Okay.
So you have
Okay.
that.
Makes
And
sense.
that's where, I was mentioning earlier with the manifesting generator, what they do have a little bit of that initiation as well. That's where the manifestor comes in. So it's kind of a little bit of a combined type in a way.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
in the way they're meant to pre-aligned opportunities kind of brings together both the generator and the manifester in, for example, they're meant to kind of respond and inform. We don't need to go into the weeds of that, but like
Yeah.
they kind of bring together some aspects of both those types.
Interesting. Okay.
But yes, so that was manifester. And then our last type that our lovely Maddie is a reflector. I mentioned earlier, reflectors are the rarest type, about 1%. Um, and their energy, what's unique about them is when I was describing the different centers earlier, so our 9 centers, they're either going to be on our design, what we call defined or undefined. And that relates to whether that energy, for example, like we talked about the sacral center, if that's defined, that's like really reliable energy to us. And if it's undefined, that means that that energy is, not as reliable to us, and we really feel the energy around us and amplify that.
Yes.
And as a reflector, they have all 9 centers undefined. So they don't have any of their own like reliable energy, but they are so sensitive to the people and places around them. And they, by the name, you can kind of gather aspects of what makes their energy so powerful, is that they're able to really amplify kind of those around them and be kind of a guide in a different way. Like it's almost like, reflecting back to you in a way that almost gives you this perspective. But what's really important about reflectors is that they honor the space and people around them because they are so sensitive to that energy, that they really choose to be in places that feel good and be around people that feel good, because again, they amplify that good energy from all the different centers. And they might also and again, relating to people around you, like they might need more downtime, like more alone time than some other types, because they just have such an open design that they just really feel everything. Again, that's just one aspect of their design, but that's kind of a little bit about reflectors.
It almost gives me a little bit of anxiety to hear about, as a generator, to hear about reflectors, because there's so much, I don't want to say opposite, but it's a very different way of operating.
Very different way. I mean, there's just, and that's what's so cool, is that like human design shows us we're not supposed to all operate in the same way.
Yeah.
And I think, again, like I've said it a couple times now, but we live in a culture that has like really shown like one way is the right way. And I think that shows up in like a lot of different areas of life, but it's like there's not one right way to show up. There's not one right way to use our energy, to make decisions, to learn, to eat, to exercise, there's just not one right way. Like what works for me is going to be different than what works for you. And I think that's such a big lesson of human design and understanding each other.
Yes, and going back to, it's such an empowering tool for that lesson when you're ready to embrace, like, I'm going to stop pulling off the one-liners or what these Instagram influencers are saying for every parts of your life, and I'm like ready to own, and take responsibility for myself in a really beautiful way. Like, this is a tool that is empowering, and like you said, you can kind of navigate a lot of parts of life. Like, you can understand how to eat, how to respond to things, how to interact with your community and your relationships. So there is like, it's kind of like which you've touched on, it's like a roadmap for all of the things.
Absolutely.
And
it
gives you the information, and really all what you have to do is like be willing to commit to, following the design, I guess.
Right. And that's where there's signposts in your design where you can start to recognize, just having the awareness around it. You can start to recognize when you might be a little bit out of alignment, and just that awareness is a step forward.
Yes.
Just starting to feel like what feels good in your energy. I think that's a really big part of it, because for me, when I learned my design in more detail, I feel like it really helped me as I experimented with it, because it gives such practical tools to kind of experiment with and kind of show you a new lens. Like it gave me a way that in using those tools and experimenting, I feel like I was like more aligned than I had ever felt. I felt more connected, and things felt more easeful. Like things felt more fun. Like it didn't feel like I
Yes.
was going so hard to get everything didn't feel so difficult and like upstream. And so I think that's like a really big piece of it as well.
How would you say, because I think this is an important topic and is like top of mind for a lot of people, how would you say human design assists us in like understanding our purpose?
Hmm. That's a big question. There are a number of things in our design that point to this. So sometimes that's what a client might come to me for, is like really trying to connect to that. And so there's certain parts of your design that really can speak to your purpose. But I think the biggest part is like in even though there's these different things that we can look at. We can look at our incarnation cross, for example. We can look at different gates. There's things that are in our design that can speak to that. We can look at our profile to learn how we're kind of supposed to navigate in getting there. So there's all these different ways to look at it. But I think the most important part is that when we are living in our design, and when we are honoring how to use our energy best and how to make those decisions in the best way for us and create the right opportunities, everything else is just is. You're not forcing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you
Yeah.
you will live out your purpose because you're in alignment.
Yes.
Like the right opportunities will come your way
They will not
because
miss you. Yeah.
yeah, they won't miss you. And I think that although we can like look at some of these areas of our design to almost get clues and have awareness around it, there's not a tool to say like, okay, now this is how you achieve it, in terms of like, okay, this is my purpose. I think in learning some of those aspects, to me at first I wasn't necessarily sure what that meant, but as I started to learn my design and live within those, again coming back to those basics of my design, I feel like that allowed me to then see it showing up in areas that I
Yes.
wasn't, and it became more clear because it was like, oh, that's what that meant. Like there was more ahas because there was this awareness around something, but then it was like it just showed up because it's not something we force. It's just part of who we are once we are in that alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I'd love to kind of dig into your story and like feel free to give us human design examples along the way because you sit here today, you're a human design expert, you're a wellness advocate, you have a wealth of knowledge, you're pregnant and glowing with our sweet little buddy. But both you and I know it has been a long journey to get here.
You can say that again.
Um, and there's just so much wisdom you've picked up along the way that I think, there's probably another episode that we have you on to dig into some of the wellness stuff that you've learned and had to become an expert in for yourself to be your own advocate. But like share the journey because I think just within sharing your journey, like there's so much information and knowledge and also like relatability, encouragement for others listening. And it's been such an intense and powerful journey. And obviously, we're very happy with where we've ended up today. But it's been a lot to get here.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think as I've said earlier, my well, maybe I didn't actually. My health journey has really been the catalyst to do a lot of the inner self work that I've done, and like really finding the rituals and modalities and different things that are supportive to me. And I will say there's been a number of things that have been supportive to me along my health journey, and human design being one of them. But my health journey started probably about 10 years ago. Um, and it started more with like really getting out of a stressful job, and really, starting to recognize that I wasn't feeling my best. But it quickly, as I started to make some diet and lifestyle changes, I feel like I was feeling a little bit better. And like my husband and I had really wanted to get pregnant. And so about 8 years ago, we started our fertility journey. And that has been really like the driving force behind my health journey. That's kind of the thing that really was the main focus, but also then went into a number of different places. So in my experience, my husband and I were trying to get pregnant and we were not successful. We eventually went to see a fertility specialist about a year or two in, probably, to trying. And from their perspective, there was nothing that was keeping us from getting pregnant. There was, no reason we shouldn't be able to get pregnant. They offered us, solutions that they could, like IUI and IVF. But again, from their perspective, there was nothing pointing to why we needed to go that route. And my intuition at the time was that that was not the right path for us. I felt like there was something being missed. I didn't know what, but I did feel like there was something that we were missing and needed to be addressed. So that kind of started my like deep exploration of lots of different healing modalities. Again, a lot that have been supportive to me along the way, but I did eventually start working with my naturopath, who has been just an absolute, um, just the most amazing woman in my life. Like, she has really, really changed the trajectory of my life and just has been such a wonderful doctor to me. And I think that that's been a big, big part of my journey. And so in working with her, with my naturopath, we were able to determine that I had been dealing with mold toxicity. I had a number of gut issues going on. I had hormonal imbalances. We eventually learned that I had fibroids and endometriosis that had been missed probably for years. So a number of things to tackle. But I was in such good hands. And again, like we said earlier, it's a journey. It was not something that was going to be fixed overnight and was going to take a lot of hard work.
I want to pause here for a second because you just listed off some really serious things. And I want to share something that I think is going to probably, if this is true and this is my memory, so, you'll probably correct me on it because yours is always better than mine. But if it's true, it's going to be so relatable to people, because for me, I remember your wellness journey, or like my moment of recognizing like, oh, Kel's like digging into this with you cutting out gluten. And I remember I think I was visiting you. I like came to surprise you. I think this was the trip. I came to surprise you was it your 30th birthday maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, my memory is
so it's almost been 10 years since I cut out gluten.
Yes. Yes. And I remember you like generally not feeling well, but like I don't remember a ton of the details, or if you even knew any details. And I remember you like having vegan baked goods in your house, and it was like, oh, I'm giving up gluten. And like, fuck, if only that was the solution. Like, yes, but I think it's like really relatable because people are like, I'm not feeling well, like maybe I'll give up gluten, maybe I'll cut out sugar. Like, we're just pulling at like whatever we can because we do want to feel better. But you talked about finding Dr. Judy, who we both see. When you can find someone who really has a holistic approach and really understands all the different layers to and levels to the human body, the soul, like how it all interacts, like that's a game changer. Because like gluten was like just a tiny little scrape of like what you needed to do to really heal yourself. It was a step. It was like a little like inch forward. But yeah, sorry to interrupt your flow. I just like feel like that is so relatable to people of like, well, maybe if I give up gluten, I'll feel better. And like,
well, and I did. I skipped over like a lot of those details, but early on, I just kind of said I changed some diet and lifestyle things, but they were really impactful at the time. And like when I was transitioning out of like a really stressful career, and I was having all these aches and pains, and I was having this tiredness, and there was just tons of symptoms that didn't feel connected. But I just felt like they were. And as I started to make some of those diet changes, like they were really impactful. And like you said, gluten was the first one. And, since there's been others that have been helpful to me, and that's, evolved along the way. But just starting to pay attention to that, that was a really big part of the beginning of my journey, was just like recognizing that diet and lifestyle changes could have an impact on my
Yeah.
health. And they have, and it's a huge part of where I am today.
Mm.
And without those, I think, you know, without those being such a focus, I don't think some of the other things would be possible. Like that was able for help me get to a place of being able to tackle some of this other stuff,
Yeah.
and still remains a big part of my journey. So yes, absolutely. Yeah. I skipped over a lot of those details, but there was a number of things that were going on related to the gut, with food sensitivities, with parasites, with dysbiosis, and then there was the toxins, and then there was the hormone stuff. I mean, there
Oh
was
my
just so
God. Oh
much
my
going
God.
on. And I think, there's not really a way of knowing exactly what led to what. But my greatest understanding at this point is that I have learned that with my genetics, I don't detox as well. And so I need supportive things in my life that help me detox better, because we are so exposed to, so many different environmental toxins and, things in our products and our food and, all these things. So being able to clean up my life in that way to support my system so
Yeah.
that I can handle what I'm exposed to has been like really life changing as well. And that's what really helped me get to a place of like, I was able to, by working with Dr. Judy, I was able to figure out what was going on and understand a little bit better about what was going on in my body. But then there was like a really big road of healing from that and healing all these things. And it eventually was this, domino effect. Once I could get the mold out of my system, my gut started to improve. And I eventually did have to do a couple of surgeries to address the endometriosis and the fibroids. But I think, all of it together kind of dominoing to get me to this place. Side note, I actually feel like I had a lot of gut issues. And as I learned my human design, it was interesting to learn that I was supposed to make decisions from my gut. And I feel like as I started to honor that, I don't know timing what, there was a lot of healing going on. But to me, I felt like my gut got stronger as I started to listen to it. And I was
Yeah.
able to listen to it as it got stronger. So, I mean, it kind of went both ways, but it was like, it became this part of the journey that from a human design perspective, that I didn't see coming as well. That like, I've had these gut challenges for years. And then all of a sudden it was like, as I start to tap into that gut knowing and set these boundaries and
Yes.
say yes to the
Yes.
right things, like I became stronger.
Well, and it's almost like a cycle or like a chicken and the egg scenario, right? Like, how can you listen to your gut when your gut has so much going on and is so messed up?
Right.
But the more you listen to your gut, the better it can all
Yes,
get.
exactly.
So it's like,
It really
it's,
was.
yeah, yeah. It's just like, what happens first? But I do want to also highlight another human design moment for you. And obviously, you didn't know this at the time, but and this I was like really proud of you for. And it was kind of unheard of at the time. I feel like now people are walking away from jobs they're unhappy about left and right.
Mhm.
But you left a job that you were unhappy about that was draining you. Like you trusted yourself, back to that human design thing. Like if something is not giving you energy, it's draining you and it's draining you drastically. And you made the decision to leave that behind and not knowing what your future was going to be. I remember that time.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
left the whole career. I mean, it wasn't just a job, but I left
yeah,
what I thought I was going to be doing for a long time. I used to work in events, and I fully left that industry, the hospitality industry, without having a clue with what was next. And
yeah,
it took me a long time to kind of figure out exactly, again, I guess I was kind of following the breadcrumbs at that point to kind of figure out what was next. I just knew in the moment. And I think I've spoken to you about this because right after I quit that job, I came down to visit you, and I just knew I needed to be around you, and I needed to like just figure out the next step. And the next step became really clear. And that's all I knew, but I didn't know where
yeah,
it was going.
yeah.
Um, and I actually never even thought about the fact that that was very much in tune with my design that I didn't know about.
Yeah. Yeah,
Very
exactly.
cool.
But it's what triggered all of this. All of
All of
this,
it.
So yeah, it's a pretty incredible example. Not to say it was a quick journey, because that's also kind of the frustrating thing that you realize once you're on this journey. Like it's nothing's necessarily happening overnight, but like you know, I've never asked you this, but I look at like the information and knowledge you've acquired, and obviously where we ended up in a very happy, good place. Would you change any of it?
I wouldn't. It's actually really, I think about this a lot, and it's really crazy to say. And I can't even believe that I feel so strongly of that, but like I
Yeah.
wouldn't change any of it. It has been such a challenging journey, and definitely not a quick one. And along the way, there's been some really low points, but like I am who I am today because of it. And I am so much better at taking care of my body because of it. I am like feel the best I've ever felt because of it. I mean, all these steps along the way got me to a place that I couldn't have predicted myself. I couldn't have dreamt up really. And I feel like I'm better to take care of myself and my family and my friends like
Yes.
moving forward.
Yes. Yes.
And that's putting me in a position earlier in life, I feel like, to do that. I'm a different person because of it, and I wouldn't change that.
Yes. And I will tell you this, and I'm sure you already know this, but there's nothing like experiencing it. The minute that you hold that sweet baby boy, you will know like everything that has happened has led to this exact moment, and you would not change a thing because it all had to happen to lead to
Right.
that moment, and just the tools you have to help him on his journey, like with everything, his design, a toxic free life, like setting up his immune system, setting up his health, like
Hmm.
this kid is going to be golden.
Yes, we haven't gotten to that part of my journey, but as Brooke has said, I am currently 5.5 months pregnant after
Ooh,
8-year journey of getting here. We are so excited. But again, it took a lot to get here, and I do feel like I will be a different mother because of it, and I will show up differently for him and for myself because of this. Um,
yeah. And I don't want to glaze over that journey. Like it was and has been like it's not over. Like it's going to be a constant journey, but like the intensity, like obviously we're in a very happy moment. There were a lot of really unhappy, scary times where something I give you so much credit for in all the layers of your journey, and I think you are such a good example of, is even though you found this incredible doctor, who Dr. Judy, I'll link her stuff too for anyone who wants to check out. She is incredible, like best of the best. Even though you found this incredible doctor, you never once like gave up your own power to advocate for yourself and to learn for yourself. And I think that is the key to
yeah.
the success of your journey. And even though it feels like it's been a long time, like it probably moved things along so much faster. And it's an incredible example for people. Like we need to stop giving away our power in everything and anything, but especially our health journey and the decisions we make
Right.
around our own health and wellness. We need to stop giving that away to other people.
I think that's been one of my biggest lessons, honestly, is that to really trust myself and to advocate for myself. And I think I always had this, deep intuition of challenging those things, and knowing what was best for me. But it's been really, really hard, and it's against the grain. And it's not the easy route. It's not the quick route. It's not the route that most people follow. So it feels like a crazy uphill battle the whole time. But learning to advocate for myself in that way, I feel like has been such a blessing. And, you know, still is a journey I mean, I still have to show up in that way, and that's still
Yes.
challenging.
Yep.
But to then be able to show up for that, for my family, for my friends, for my
Yes.
future
Yes.
son, being able to do that, and be that advocate, I think has been a big part of what I was, meant to learn along the way. Um,
Yeah.
so I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
It's
I
wild.
love that. And there are so many things to dig into. I think we'll have to do a whole separate conversation around like toxins and mold and like your discovery of that. I mean, you guys, Kelly built a house from the ground up to escape mold, which we both had. I had a much less version of mold poisoning, but even what I had was like it was awful. And so I know that was so scary and intense for, and you learned so much on that. But one thing that I want to touch on that I feel like is a key, and I'm curious if you would describe it this way too, but has been a key for you that I feel like is not talked about a lot, is the genetic learnings and the genetic testing that you did. And I know it's very complex, but if you could kind of share the high level in case there is someone out there who's listening that is like, I've been tested, I've tried everything, I've been tested for everything, like I'm having all these issues and no one can figure out what's wrong with me. Could you share a little bit about like what that is and what that's kind of uncovered for you?
I feel like that's just been one part of the journey in testing specifically. But I've been able to really understand that I have certain genetics. I think specifically, like, there's a number that we've looked into in terms of how I process, different vitamins and minerals and detoxification and methylation and just a number of things. But I feel like understanding the fact that I have certain mutations around detoxification,
Mm-hmm.
that was probably the most helpful. And digging into that so that we were able to understand the best way to support my system and understanding that everyone's system is different. We're all exposed to toxins. So, I think that at this point, we probably all need some type of, toxin overhaul to a certain
Yes.
extent. And we all need to, limit our exposure in ways that we are able to, through our water, our food, our products and things. So there's ways that we can, reduce our load. But I think understanding that from a testing perspective, just to see that, like, I think my doctor at one point explained, like, you have a car that has four wheels and you only have two wheels going. So like
Right.
it's not working the same. And so being able to find the things that have been helpful to me, like, infrared sauna has been amazing in my journey of trying to detox out some of the higher levels of mold and other toxins that I was experiencing. There's different supplements that have been helpful. So there's a lot of different tools that then you can use to better support your system and really know where you're at. But the testing was able to kind of give us a little bit more guiding direction on that for me specifically. But then I think even more so beyond healing from mold toxicity and healing from these different things, I now know that I need to support my body differently for the rest of my life. So there's other things that I think become more priorities. And that doesn't mean I'm doing to the same extent of what I was doing before, but I, try to do sauna on like more of a maintenance level and like just to kind of
Yes.
like my
Yes.
system, not as often, but still do it. And then there's certain supplements, especially glutathione, that's been so, so key to keeping my levels up so that I have that, master antioxidant, and also, it helps that detoxification process. So there's these things that I'm going to continue to do that are going to support me. And, another one, like I rarely drink anymore. I haven't drank for a long
Mm-hmm.
time, but alcohol became something that my body didn't process as well. And it just wasn't worth it. So there's just
Yes.
these things that I've learned about my body that will be more lifelong because it supports me in feeling my best.
Well, and I really think that there needs to be a shift in mentality around detoxing from, I guess, mostly from my personal experience. I would say, like, years ago when I had the juice company, I think detoxing got hyped up in a kind of a negative way of like people doing the juice cleanses and
Right.
thinking like they could go out and party for a weekend and then do a 4-day juice cleanse and that was detoxing. That, is not what I'm talking about. I think that what you kind of mentioned, detox maintenance, is really important for vibrancy, longevity, general health. Like I work it same as you, work it into my routine. I'll do sauna a few times a week. I have my detox foot baths pads at night, which actually I'm so stoked. I just bought one of those like ion foot baths. Dude,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm so excited. And for everyone listening, I will take videos and share them online because, like, I did one at my chiropractor's, who she's like this holistic chiropractor, but I did one and the liquid was like brown and black after
Yeah.
my
I've been
feet were in there.
too. It's gross.
Um,
It's
dude, it's so It's so gross and amazing at the same time. It's like, a gross that you can't stop looking at. So that's something that I do. I do the glutathione as well, which that's becoming like a supplement that a lot more people know about. I'll do charcoal like around my period, especially around my cycle. Like I will make sure to do extra detoxing, which I think this is something people don't know, and you explain it so much better than I do. You also explained it to me at 38 years old. But can you talk about exactly what is happening? Because this is another thing you become such a pro in. Can you talk about, as it relates to kind of detox, what is happening the like few days around our period that we should really know and be mindful of to like have a better time?
Well, I mean, I think there's things that you can be doing, all month long around your cycle to like really support your hormones to be at their best. But I think pointing out leading up to your period is just when there's so much going on in your body. I think one of the things that can be really helpful is if you do choose to drink alcohol, limiting it around that time.
Yeah.
Because the way we're processing alcohol, the way we're processing toxins, and just everything going on with our hormones being the lowest at that point, like going into having our period, I feel like it just overloads the system. So it's like, all these things are, going through their detoxification phase through the liver. And that's something that is just making it harder on your system to process. So, I'm not saying don't drink alcohol anytime, but if you're going to choose to be aware of that around your cycle, I think it can be really helpful to avoid leading up to getting your period, and doing extra things maybe leading up to it, like the sauna, to help support your system as well. And again, like there's just so much to cover there, but you can really
Yes.
start to honor your cycle and where you are to, give your body the rest it needs at that time so it can do what it's doing. And it's, having maybe a little bit more protein at that time, just doing things that can really support your system and what they needs. Again, that's like another rabbit hole, but there's just so much to support your cycle in all the different phases so that you can feel the best at all times.
Yeah. For me, really thinking about, and this like my Lyme disease ties in with it a bit, but really thinking about being conscious about detoxing before my cycle does make a huge difference. And so if you don't have a sauna or don't have access to a sauna, that could be something as simple as a bath, or even like more movement, like walks, like to help your body move things through, or like lymphatic touch and like giving yourself soft lymphatic massage. Like there's plenty you can do that's free and super accessible, but just being more mindful of like helping those toxins get out of your body faster and easier.
Great examples. Yeah. And Epsom salt for your bath too, as well. Just like really, yeah. Those are great options. Absolutely. Circling back to kind of how I really got into human design in terms of my health journey, which I feel like I didn't fully share that aspect of it with you. Well, but our audience.
For the audience.
Yes, for the audience. In terms of healing and being on that healing journey, I feel like I got to like a really good place of clearing the mold, of balancing my hormones, of getting my gut issues, better balanced and in a better place. And I really feel like I was like in the best health that I had been for a long time. And after having my surgeries to address the fibroids and endometriosis and, those layers as well, at that point, which was in 2022, was something where I felt like IVF then did feel like the right next step. It felt like we wanted to be a little bit more aggressive and like really, see if this was something that was in our future. And, long story short, that whole year just was all consuming of fertility, IVF. One plan didn't work out, then nothing went to plan. And it really, really consumed my full year. And I feel like I just got totally lost in it. And it was just like it became my entire life. But in going into what was our embryo transfer, I like really felt like I was in a good place, and I was so surrendered to what was going to happen, because I just felt like this was our time. This was going to be our baby. Like, I just felt like it was, again, it was my whole life, but it just like, it felt so right. When we had an unsuccessful transfer, um, that was probably one of my lowest points in this health journey.
Yeah.
There was a lot of highs and lows, but this was a really, really hard one because I had finally got to a place of like total trust, like surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just was so confident it was going to work. And when it didn't, I was so stuck. And I mentioned that before, like human design, like really helped me get unstuck. Um, I was in just such a bad place. And actually you and I and a friend, were doing this like early, like around New Year's, we had this call and um, we were talking about like our goals and just kind of different things for the year and reflecting on the past year. And I felt like although I was in such a good place in 2022, all I could see was the negativity of
Mm-hmm.
everything I worked towards didn't work out. And that was like what really helped me realize how stuck I was. And you actually were the one that was like, are you familiar with human design? And I was, but I had never dived into like the details of it. I knew kind of my basic stuff. And so after that call, I started to kind of look into more, and it just was like exactly what I needed at that time. It started to, I was in this place because I like had let all of it so consume me. I didn't even know who I was anymore. I didn't know
Yeah.
how I wanted to show up. I didn't know how to make decisions. I felt like I didn't trust myself anymore. And human design like really brought clarity, and it let me like let go of a plan and just start to follow those
Mm-hmm.
protocols again. And um, that's what eventually like helped me throughout that whole year. We had a second healthy embryo that we were hoping we would at some point use. But I feel like human design was actually the tool that helped me realize, like, when people would ask, like, when are you going to do another transfer? It was like, it's just a no for now. Like, it was a no. Like, my
Yeah.
body
Yeah.
went through so much to recover from that. Like, it took me
Mm-hmm.
probably the whole year to actually feel like healthy and strong again. It was so black and white for me. It was like, it's a no. And, but I feel like human design helped me realize that it was a no.
Yeah.
It was like I stopped trying to plan everything out and figure out exactly when it was going to happen. And I allowed that like whole year to just, let myself get healthy and strong and like follow, make a decision with each decision. And it just kind of led me to the next thing. And eventually I actually realized that it was like a full on no for me, at least in the way that we had done it before.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that became really clear, which was like a really interesting process. Um, and then eventually, I think like human design just allowed me to like really be in that presence to like understand what was best for me. And as a generator who's meant to respond, um, my mom at some point towards the end of the year was like, is there another way? Um, and I sat with that for a little bit, and that kind of coming into my, you know, peripheral, like that came into my life. It was like, is there another way?
Mm.
And I eventually went back to my doctor and said, I know that I don't want to do it the way we did it before. I know that I don't want my body on those synthetic hormones. It's just too much. But we have this healthy embryo. Can we do a natural cycle? Can we just do
Yeah.
a natural transfer
Yeah.
without any of the hormones? And they let me. And it just kind of felt like for once it like wasn't planned out. We didn't know we were going to do it when we did, but like once it came into a place where I was able to respond to that, it allowed me to see like, oh, like I'm okay with this and this feels really right. And okay, this is the time. Like it just wasn't, I feel like the timing almost like chose us.
Yeah.
I felt like it was guided more by like my gut and my intuition and not some preset plan. And I think human design really helped me with that. And as we shared earlier, it worked. And you'll appreciate this. I think the other really cool aspect about the timing was that it fell on a new moon. It was at the beginning of the lunar new year. There
Yep.
was just all these cool things that came into this
Yeah.
timing that I was like, wow, like I couldn't have planned this if I tried.
Yeah, just signs from the universe too that you're supported. But like, I want to one that's the story is so incredible, and I want to pause on a sec for a second because that is really hard. Trusting
Mm,
yourself, your intuition, trusting your human design in a scenario where the stakes are so high. We're not talking about deciding on a job or, a trip or, this is like, not to be dramatic, but this is like life or death for your embryo and
right?
your opportunity to be be pregnant and have a baby and like
Mhm.
holy shit, the power of you to get to that like how freaking empowering and powerful and like ballsy to like be in that place doing that. And like with that, like, is there anything that you can't do when you are following your design? Like, I would say no. Like, does that give you just so much confidence and reinforcement of like, this is this is the way to go?
I do feel like I was so meant to, I mean, there's so many of things along the last 8, 10 years of this journey that I think I was meant to do, like we said earlier, and meant to learn. And there's so many lessons in all of this. But I do feel like human design played a really key role in my healing. And it like
Mhm.
helped me rediscover my true self. And like that I had forgotten along the way. It's something that
Yeah.
I was able to
Yeah.
reconnect with. I think discovering that and how I wanted to show up, like I said, as a mother. But even more than that, I feel like it's helped me like connect back to who I am outside of being a mother as well. And I think I was meant to really understand that better before going into this next chapter because I could easily see myself just that being all of who I am. And I think that's a big
Yes.
part of who I'm going to be, but it's not all of who I am. And I think I needed to recognize that. And I think human design really
Yes.
helped me learn that and tune back into my inner knowing and come home to myself of how I wanted to show up in this world. And I really I think I had lost that along the way because I was so deep in such a tough healing journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe that you, as you follow your design, continue to follow your design, you will only get healthier and stronger and your vibration will raise. Like there is a theory that, if we are all energy, then dis-ease or issues within our
Mhm.
body is just our energy actually out of alignment. And there's many different ways that can be out of alignment. But as you know, you can't really go on a healing journey without facing down a lot of those things too, the trauma, the triggers, the conditioning, the stuck energy that your body's held on to that maybe you don't even have a memory for what it is, but like
Mhm.
it's a very holistic journey. And so I think I just want to recognize that, like how far you've come, how incredible to get to this place. It's not like you just studied human design and you're like, yep, that's it for me. Like there's a whole history. Yeah, there's a whole history that comes with this of you learning about yourself in all of the different ways, fighting down, kicking through doors, like rediscovering parts of yourself, combating traumas, storylines to get to a place where you trust yourself enough to make this, who's not a medical expert, to make this what some would call like crazy call on what's best for
Mhm.
you to have a baby. And like, damn, that's really cool and inspiring.
And none of this was like, I feel like none of it is how I was guided from the outside. You
Mm-hmm.
know, none of
Yes.
the decisions were, what, certain doctors were telling me to do, or what I would have been guided through if I didn't advocate for myself. So it is pretty wild to like look back. And I do think like all the things really happened at the time they were supposed to. And human design found me in a deeper way when I really needed it.
Yeah.
And different modalities found me in different parts of those chapters that really helped and support me. And I think that's another piece that human design has really taught me about, the uniqueness and us all needing different things. Like, find whatever healing modality is helpful to you. There's, tons of things to explore. And I think human design is a great tool to put the power back to the individual to like really do that self exploration. But there's lots of different tools out there and modalities that can be supportive to people outside of human design as well, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is interesting because, I'll be interested to see if you recall this, but I had told you about human design long before that moment that you had mentioned.
Mm.
I had introduced human design to you, and I remember at the time thinking like, I'm surprised this isn't resonating with her more. I don't know. I just felt like it was for you. But you still had pieces of your journey. Like, it's not like had you started studying human design at that moment,
Yeah.
like everything would have been fast forwarded. Like, no way. You had to, like, you were exposed to it and then you had to get there yourself. And I say this because I think it's helpful for those of us on this journey to remember that, to have patience with our loved ones, the people around us. Like, just expose them to the stuff. Like, your job is to hold the vibration, expose them to the stuff, and like let them go on their own journey to find it, because it will hit when it's meant to hit. And for you, you're the perfect example of that. But then when it
Yeah,
hit,
I
it
think it
really
got
did.
brought up or, into my world multiple times over the course of multiple years. And I always knew the basics. Like, I always knew like
Yeah.
what I was, but I didn't even know what that meant. And it's so funny because I think it was just, yeah, it was the right timing. And I think because I probably had heard about it multiple times prior, that it actually helped it resonate in the time that it did.
Yeah,
It wasn't
totally.
the first time I was hearing about it. But it was the right time to like really dive in. And it was what I needed in that moment.
Totally. Okay. You have 20 seconds with someone. What's the life-changing advice that you're giving them?
Oh, wow. Big question. Um, I would say embrace your uniqueness. I think stop worrying about fitting in and connect back to who you are at your core, because the world needs you. There
Hmm.
is one you out there, and we need that version of you.
Yes. Yes. And the truer we are to ourselves, the more it benefits everyone. I think that's something that's like
Absolutely.
so important to remember. I love that. And so tell me, what does a human design experience with you look like? Like, if someone books in a session, what does that look like?
It can look a number of different ways. I do offer human design more in a coaching environment where we can, really dive into different layers of your design over the series of, multiple calls. So we can really like work on it and integrate it into your life and come back to, what's working and what resonates and like see how it shows up, because it's something that like takes time, I think, to really dive into those layers, because it's
Yeah.
something that you need to experiment with and see how some of the basic things show up, and then go from there. So I really love working with people from that perspective, but I also offer just individual or even partnership readings. Like you mentioned earlier, you and Maddie did a partnership reading with me. I think both those, I think, starting maybe from an individual place can be great. A lot of times then one person brings, their business partner or their romantic partner, or wants to learn about their child. That can
Yes.
be a way to then really better understand your relationship dynamics and support each other in the best way. So that's a really fun way to use human design. So I do readings with people both from individual or partner perspective, and sometimes that is on like a reoccurring basis, more from a coaching perspective. So lots of different ways.
Yeah. And I swear, anyone who I've ever seen get introduced to human design and like learn their design, the reaction's always the same. It's like, holy shit, that's so dead on. And it feels so validating.
Absolutely. People feel so seen, um, so validated. And it's, I feel like it's such an honor and a privilege to look at people's design and to
Mm,
share their design with them, because it's it's getting to dive into like their uniqueness and their unique gifts, and like how they're meant to use their energy best. And it's just such a cool perspective and lens on somebody. I think it's such a privilege to be able to explore that with somebody and help them kind of experiment with that themselves. So it's really an honor to me to do this work.
Yeah. I love that. Where can people find you? How can they sign up for a call with you? What's the best way?
Best way is probably through my website, kellymetters.com. I'm also on Instagram at wellness from within _ with Kelley. I have been a little less active on Instagram during my pregnancy, so I'm still there, but that and that will evolve, of course, over the course of life.
Yes.
But website or Instagram, just either you can direct message me there or send an email through my website as well. Those would be the best ways to connect with me.
Awesome. I love you. This has been incredible. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. It's been a privilege to be here.
Yes. And for everyone listening, thank you. I hope you love this. I know, we just kind of scratched the surface of human design, but I know a lot of you have been curious. You can reach out to Kelley to learn more. She can point you to some resources. We'll link some resources. It is an incredible tool. This is also something that's really fun. If you already know your human design and are into it, I found this is something that's really fun to gift people. It's a fun birthday gift. And, you could warm them up by sharing this episode with them, kind of letting them dabble and see if they're curious. This is a really great episode to share with friends. If you're on a group text chain, this will provide lots of different areas to dive into, to chat. And I'm sure for any of you on a wellness journey or fertility journey that can relate to Kelley in any way, I'm sure she's happy to receive an email from you or a DM to talk about supporting in those things as well. I can tell you, not just speaking from a best friend, she is an incredible resource, incredible wealth of knowledge, and she has moved mountains for herself. So I would highly recommend connecting with her.
If there's any way I ever can be supportive to anyone listening, I am absolutely happy to. I would love to connect.
Yeah. And no matter what, follow her on Instagram because this girl is just getting started. I see some really fun, big things for her future and some really great ways to connect and for her building community. So just keep your eye on her. All right, everyone. Appreciate you all, and we'll see you next time.